So notice down here where we set the pivot point that if we press Tab to go back into object mode, we get a new little button to press here that pops up next to where we can set the pivot point. And if we let the mouse hover over this, we see it says manipulate center points. And what this allows us to do is, rather than scaling and rotating the objects themselves, this will allow us to scale and rotate the relationship between objects. So for instance, if I were to press S to scale this down right now, notice that the origin points, or the center points, are getting closer to each other, but everything is scaling down, or if I scale up like this, everything's getting bigger. So I could press Ctrl Z to undo that. If I just wanted to scale the position between these, I can turn this on, press S to scale, and now I'm able to bring these closer together, farther apart. So this turns out to be a super cool modeling tool in addition to allowing us to perform some really cool animation tricks that I'll show you in a second. One thing you want to remember not to do is to leave it activated when you are working again with single objects, because if you do, and say you click this cube or something and you want to rotate it, notice that nothing's happening, or you want to scale it, notice that nothing's happening. And that's because it's only affecting the origin point, and if it's only got one origin point to work with, well, then nothing's going to happen. So remember to turn it off when you're not using it, or else things are going to appear stuck, even though they're not. It's just doing what it's supposed to. So one modeling situation I find myself using this a bunch is when like positioning wheels or something on a vehicle. So if I were to press A to select everything, X to delete, press Shift A, and under Mesh, add a cylinder, and I could turn on my manipulation widget here, and maybe go ahead and turn on grid snapping, and then just rotate this like this, and then this will just snap till it snaps flat there, and turn that off. Press S to scale, middle mouse to constrain. Make sure that manipulate center points is not activated while you're trying to actually scale individual objects. Then say we press D to duplicate this, and shift select that one and duplicate that. So say I've got these kind of like 4 wheels here, and I realize, you know what, I need to push these in, or I need to bring these in towards each other. If I were to just select them all and press S to scale, yes, I would be bringing the wheels in towards each other, but I'm also scaling the tires down, and I don't want that. Or if I were to press S to scale, middle mouse to constrain, I could bring them closer together, but I'm flattening the tires, and that's not what I want. So to accomplish this task, it's much easier just to use our manipulate center points. I can just easily bring them together if I need, or press S to scale, middle mouse to constrain like this. Or I can also rotate these individually like this if I have some reason for doing that. Press Y, X, or Z if I need to rotate them in a particular position. And what's sweet about this is that we can also animate any of these movements that we make with this manipulate center points button as well. So I'll right click to cancel that. So I'm going to press X to delete all that. I'm going to press Shift A, and under Mesh, add a plane. And then once again, I'm trying to scale, but I can't. So we got to remember to turn this off when we're not using it, otherwise things won't scale when you press S to scale. So just kind of making a ground here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off grid snapping there. Press G to grab, middle mouse to constrain. Incidentally, if we press T to bring up tool shelf, this grid snapping button here in the builder menu, this does the same thing here. It's just a convenience way to access that when using the align to grid tool there. So let's animate something cool with the manipulate center points. Let's scale this ground out a bit more, and I'm just going to tap W, say 3 times, just so we have kind of a round plane. And under my builder options menu, let's turn on high def shading, and then we're going to press Shift A, and under mesh, let's add a torus shape. Press S to scale, G to grab, just bring it up a little bit. What I would like to do is make a lot of little objects out of all of the faces in this torus shape. And to do that, we can use this separate button. The way the separate button works is that if we have, say, an object like a monkey here, any parts of the mesh of an object that are loose, such as each of the eyeballs of this generic Suzanne monkey head. If we kind of zoom in on here, hold Control and middle mouse to do a precise zoom, you can see this outer edge of the eyeball is actually not connected to anything. So if we were to press separate with just the Suzanne head selected, the first time we click it, we will get these, I think, 3 objects, this one eye here, and then the rest of the head. I'll press Control Z to undo the movements of all those and get it all selected again. But we can actually go a deeper level of separation by separating the entire amount of mesh, which is what will happen if there's no more loose parts in each object to separate. So if I were to press separate again, we'll actually now get individual objects for every piece of mesh, which is really cool. So from here, if I were to turn on my manipulate center points button and I were to press S to scale, notice this really sweet, cool looking Suzanne head singularity explosion type deal. So we're going to do that same thing with this torus first. With all that selected, I'm just going to go ahead and press X to delete that. Click on the torus. But before we separate this torus here, it would be cool if each one of the faces that instructs it were thicker. So if we went to add modifier and press solidify, and we do this before we separate, and we increase the thickness of this a bit, something like that, and then we press separate. Notice now that each one of these individual objects that was separated, press G to grab, now has a thickness value. Although this is a bit thicker than I would want, so let's press Ctrl Z until we get back to the point where this was separated. And I'm going to bring this thickness down to maybe just 0.5 here. And then let's separate it again. And okay, that's much cooler. With all that there, we could press F to insert a keyframe for all of those selected objects, and then use our right mouse button to drag the timeline down to say about 10 seconds or so, or however long you wanted this thing to go. And then with the manipulate center points button down, we can press S to scale, and scale this crazy thing out to say the perimeter of our little circle maybe, or maybe just a bit out above it. And we could press F again to insert keyframe for everything. And maybe drag this down to 15 seconds and let go, press S to scale. And maybe rather than having these meet right back where they were, we'll have it like kind of fuse into super singularity mode to something, you know, where these origin points are like infinitely close together or something. Press F for that. And so now we've got a sweet little animation here. So we could press back. We could double click off somewhere so we don't have to see all these things selected like that. And we could press T to close up our tool shelves, press back, and then press play, and watch this crazy thing just kind of expand out like this. And then we can see it come right back in. Pretty cool.